trying to get set up out here to make some forms for my epoxy granite. So I've got my y-axis installed here in the base, and I just need to maybe make some kind of wooden divider here and secure it somehow so that I can epoxy fill this. I need to put some tubes or something on these holes so that I'll be able to bolt this down. I need to make sure that my column holes don't get epoxy in those. After the epoxy dries, I can start installing the linear rails. I was initially not going to do the epoxy fill, but after doing the testing in the last linear rail conversion video, you noticed there was quite a bit of flex in the column and the base, and I think this epoxy granite is going to help stiffen that up. Okay, so I've got my y-axis ball nut in here, and I wanted to go ahead and try to come up with the form that I'm going to use, and this is what I did. I just took some 1x4, notched it out where I needed to, and I'm just going to place it in here like so to have a tunnel, and then we'll just put the epoxy granite around here. I also did some saw kerfs here, and this will, I'm hoping once this sets up, this is going to help me break this out. I've seen several videos, different techniques. The hardest part is getting this form out once this epoxy resin's filled up. I didn't want this to be enclosed. I didn't want to put epoxy over the top of this. What I wanted was to be able to get this ball screw in and out easily, and if any liquid or fluids gets built up in this tunnel, I wanted them to be able to drain out. So I'm going to leave this bottom open here. So we'll try to secure this in place. Next, I want to build a plate here that'll just bolt in where the column would go so that I can do epoxy resin in there. And also, I need to build a plate for the bottom of the column. So I'm going to work on that now. The column's only going to be filled up to about right here. I'm going to need some kind of plate on the bottom. I want to be careful that I don't get on the machine surfaces up under here, so we won't have any problems bolting it back together. Alright, so I've got all my forms made. I've got these plugged up. I've got some PVC here, so I'll have an opening through the epoxy resin in case I need to run any kind of cabling or anything like that up underneath. A hole here just in case I need to run any kind of hoses through here. I still need to make some standoffs here for the mounting bolts to go through. Then once I'm done with that, I'll clean this casting as best I can, and then we'll get set up and we'll do some pour. Well, I'm out in the shop today and I'm getting ready to try to pour this epoxy granite. You can see I got my forms all sealed up inside the base here. I've added some galvanized EMT standoffs here. That'll allow me to bolt the machine down once this all gets filled in. I've got a base here, and then I've stuck a couple of pieces of PVC tubing here. This will allow me to route any electrical or tubing down inside the base through the column. I also added a piece of tubing in the column here. Now the column's going to get filled up to about right here. I wanted to make sure I had some kind of way to route anything I needed to down through the bottom. This will be my first time pouring epoxy resin. What I did was I went in and did a group buy with a couple of friends of mine, Chris and Wyatt, and we picked up some castanite. This is a polymer epoxy granite aggregate. This is all pre-mixed. Now I noticed that it's kind of in clumps, so what I'm going to do is, if I can just break up all the clumps. I don't know exactly how much I'm going to need of this, but the way this system works is this is already pre-mixed, and so all I'm supposed to do is have to pour this hardener in here, part B, and then that should be it. I want to break this up real good and make sure there's no real hard clumps. And then we're going to see, I think what I'm going to do is mix up half of this. I've got this pan here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix up maybe half of this and spread that around, and then I'll mix up the other half. I don't think I'm going to need it all, but I'm not really sure. After looking at it, it may be pretty close. It's about 3/4 of a 5-gallon bucket there, maybe 5/8 of a bucket. So we'll see. Alright, so let me get this mixed up real good. Alright, so what I've got here is about 1/3 of that bucket. What I did was I measured the top of the bucket there to where the castanite reached, which was about right here. Then I measured it, it was 9 inches. I know this bucket's tapered, so it may not be precise, but it should be pretty close. I was going to do a half originally, but the pan I have doesn't hold a half, so I'm just going to do it in thirds. So we've got 1/3 here. I'll pour it out and get another 1/3, and I'll pour that out. I rolled this bucket around. I poured all this out on some plastic, broke up all the pieces, scooped it back up, put it in the bucket, rolled it around, and I think I've got it broken up as good as it's going to get. I don't see any more clumps of the white flour, granite flour mix stuff that I read on, that Castanite posted on a CNC forum post. So I think we're good. I've also split my hardener, or part B here, into thirds. So I'll just pour 1/3 in there, mix it up, then I'll pour it out. I guess I'll probably start with the column first, and I can move this, slide this back out of the way, and hopefully make it easier to put it into the base. I'm also going to get a random orbit sander and just kind of vibrate this down. So let me get set up, and then we'll come back and we'll start putting the epoxy granite in. This is supposed to be granite epoxy, so this is not pea gravel and sand. Alright guys, well, I think I'm about set up. It's almost go time. It's always a tense moment, making sure you get everything done that you need to do before you start mixing this up. Once you start, there's no turning back. So it's kind of like fiberglass resin or Bondo. You just, once it's done, it's done. So I've greased up my forms with some tube grease, so hopefully that'll release real well. I've also put some grease on these edges right here. I probably should have taped them up, but we'll see. I've got me an orbital sander here. Hopefully it'll last long enough to vibrate these castings. I think I'm just going to mix this with my hands, since it's not too much, and we'll see. Pour a little in there. Mix a little more. This part B here is fairly liquid. I thought it would be a little thicker, but more kind of like polyester resin, but it's not. It's about the consistency of maybe a little bit thicker than water. try to be careful not to get this hand on that bottle. Just got a little bit more here to pour out to get to my guesstimation mark there. Alright, I'm going to seal this back up and mix this with 2 hands. Then we'll start filling in. This is pretty liquidy. I don't know how long I should mix this. Just make sure it gets thoroughly coated with both parts, I think. Make sure I scrape the corners of the bucket. Oh crap. Hole in the glove. Felt like it was getting gritty under my finger there. Alright. I think that's mixed up enough. Alright, let's move over to this angle here. I think I'm going to fill the base of the column first. Alright, here we go. This stuff is really working nicely. I really like this stuff. My buddy Chris found this castanite, and it doesn't really say that they sell to the public, but he emailed them and worked out a deal, and we picked up a few buckets. I got a bucket, Wyatt got a bucket or 2, and I think Chris got 2 or 3 buckets. I don't really remember. It took a while to get it, unfortunately, and but I think it's worth it. hopefully there's going to be enough. Alright, let's hit it with the sander here. It's going to be loud. Boy, that thing's old. It's actually got a good viscosity to it. It's pretty liquid, so I think it settles in pretty good. See if I can get you a shot of that. So I think it's going to be just fine. Wipe all that off. So I'm filling it up just to the level of this opening. Alright, now let me get another batch mixed up and we'll start filling in the base. Alright, I'm going to change my glove so I don't contaminate the bucket. I'm going to get set up to mix up some more. Alright, I've got the hardener in here. I'm just mixing up my second batch here. A bigger bucket would be better, that's for sure, but this is just what I had that I was willing to destroy. You can go to Walmart or something and pick up some of these little plastic bins for little or nothing. I just failed to do that. Alright, I think I've got this thoroughly mixed. I'm going to change these gloves and then we'll start filling in the base. Alright, let's try to get you a better angle here. Let's start filling this in. I'm trying to press it down so that it fills in, packs in real well, I should say. Well, we'll see if we have enough. It may not be quite enough. Alright, so I'm going to mix up the last batch and then we'll finish this off. Alright, last little bit here. Just want to try to finish off this low spots. I think this is actually going to be just the right amount. Isn't that crazy? It's just perfect amount, I think. Alright guys, I'm using the orbital sander now just to kind of vibrate everything, and what I'm noticing is once you vibrate it, it starts to settle and you'll see these air bubbles kind of just pop out. I'll see if I can show you, but it's going to be loud. Alright, well now all that's left to do is just kind of let this sit and cure. Alright, well we've let this sit up for 24 hours. It's nice and hard. I think it turned out really well. It seems to be nice and smooth. Hopefully the grease that we put on the forms will make it easier to knock this out. I left this side high here so I could kind of just hit it and knock this out. I'm going to just knock that out, and then hopefully I should just be able to tap it and it pops right out. Of course, in theory that sounds real good, but we'll see. Okay, looks like it's breaking free now. Alright. Well, that wasn't too bad. The grease that I put on there seemed to have worked pretty well. I think definitely having those relief cuts is helping with this. I would definitely recommend doing that. Well, there we have it. Came out pretty smooth. Pretty happy with that. Alright, well, looks pretty good. Looks like we've got good compaction there. It didn't get anywhere I didn't want it to get, which is nice. Now we'll just take the bottom off the column. I'll remove these bolts, and we should be able to flip this over. Well, I got all the bolts out. I cleaned up inside here, got all the putty out so there's nothing loose in there. And I just hit these edges with a rasp or a file to kind of smooth those sharp corners off. And I think that's done. I'm going to flip it over now and remove this part here, but you can see it looks really well. Got those standoffs nice. You just need to make sure that these are below the surface here so you don't have any issues. If you do, you'll have to grind them down. This one looks a little close, but it's well below. Alright, so I'm going to flip it over now. It's definitely a lot heavier. The epoxy granite added about 50 pounds to the base and the column. Much needed extra weight. It's going to provide a lot of stiffness and help with some vibration dampening. Alright, so let's get this flipped over. Alright, right here are my machine surfaces where I'm going to be mounting the column, so I don't want to pry on that area right there. So I'm going to try to get up under where the center is here and see if we can pop it up that way. Alright, not too bad. Alright, that came out really nice. Putting the grease on the forms here, I think made all the difference in the world. Wyatt, thanks for reminding me to do that, because I surely would have forgotten. Get this cleaned up, and then we'll start on the column. See if we can't get this off. Making a mess here. Alright, let me see if I can fight with this and get this off. Camera's kind of in the way here. Okay, once I was able to kind of get in position and swing on it, it came out in pretty good chunks. So I think now I'll just take a chisel and just scrape this off here and clean it up, and then we'll see what we've got. I've got to take a hacksaw, trim this off, smooth that out so that it's flush, and then we should be good. Alright, well, everything's cleaned up. Pretty satisfied overall with the epoxy granite pour. I'll post a link in the video where you can pick up some of this castanite. Their website is www.castanite.com. One bucket was just enough to do the Precision Matthews, as you see that I've done here. Really straightforward and easy to mix and pour, so definitely satisfied with castanite. In the next video, I'm going to get this all mounted. I'm going to put it on the surface plate. We're going to check the flex and compare it to the previous video without the epoxy fill, see where we're at. We're also going to check our surfaces and make sure nothing moved, and then we'll go ahead and start mounting the linear rails. Alright, well that wraps up this video for the epoxy granite fill. For information on castanite, I'll post that in the video description. As always, if you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to comment. Thanks for watching the videos. Please subscribe, and most importantly, be safe.